I was the 12 or 13-year-old kid who be in the backyard playing with everybody else, and then would suddenly excuse myself to go and watch the news every night. And I think it's when I look back on it, I'd watch the local news, and I remember watching Peter Jennings as a kid and trying to guess movie person of the week on Friday nights. But this notion that I began interning at 13, 14 years old in that newsroom, and they would, measure my growth every summer on the growth chart of the newsroom wall. I think back to that kid, and I knew I wanted to see the world, but I don't think I was aware of what that truly meant. I thought that they were lucky enough to be out every day reporting on these stories, and I would jump in the back of the news cruiser with them. But I don't think I ever could have imagined that I would literally be out seeing the world and having the privilege of being the person that has a conversation with America every night. And I remember getting the call, and there obviously is a moment of disbelief. It's funny, I got that call, but it's the phone call that came after that. And this was the call from Diane, who obviously was the anchor of this broadcast, and a friend of mine, who simply said to me, and I won't share with you the entire conversation, but said to me, it's your time.
We'll address world leaders at the United Nations, and remember Pope Francis.
Folks would be telling you the truth if they said they weren't paying attention at all to the ratings. I mean, we know what they are. We know that that we're in a really competitive race. It's I think the tightest race in nearly a decade, and honestly, I think it ups our game. It ups everyone's game, and we have huge respect for the teams down the street. So. But again, I always say it comes down to the reporting and ultimately to the viewer at home at the end of the day. We often say downstairs in the newsroom, we've got to stay in our own lane. And at 6:30, when I look into that camera, it's the folks who've taken time out of their really busy day to watch the news. And we can't take that for granted. We can't waste their time. And we have to recognize in this sort of hyper-connected world we're in now that they've seen the headlines a million times all day long. That there has to be added value. We have to be asking the questions that they have themselves all day long when they see a certain story starting to, pop up into the conversation. But we also can't forget that the conversation maybe years ago when I grew up watching Peter Jennings, it was a nightly conversation at 6:30. I recognize that today that conversation begins the moment people wake up, when they check their emails or check their smartphone. They're already getting the headlines, and so at 6:30, I think there's an expectation that there will be more, and we aim to do that every single night. And often right after the newscast, we're downstairs in the newsroom saying we could have done that a little better, or we liked that moment. And that's part of the great thing about this job, is that we come back up here again the next night and try to do it hopefully even better than that